Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Maisha Taylor, and I'm a board certified emergency medicine physician from Los Angeles, California. I have my undergraduate degree in chemistry from Xavier University of Louisiana, and I have my medical degree from the University of Southern California School of Medicine. I completed my residency in emergency medicine at Los Angeles County King Drew Medical Center. In my senior year, I was selected as the first woman chief resident in the history of the program. I currently am the chief medical officer for NDoc Solutions, which is a telemedicine and virtual inbox company. And I am the medical director for an occupational health clinic here in Dallas, Texas. Personally, I am a twice published author of books on homeschooling and educating Black children in America. I serve in leadership positions and on panels and boards across the nation for various organizations regarding health issues and health policy. I am an expert content consultant to the state of Texas on rewriting the health education curriculum for all of our students K through 12 in our public schools. I am a member of a few social organizations, of which include Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated and Jack and Jill of America Incorporated. I am a wife, I'm a mother, and a little fun fact about me, I am also the inspiration for the Disney character Dr. Maisha McStuffins of the highly acclaimed children's series Doc McStuffins. I share all of that with you because it's so important to remember that we are physicians in every space that we occupy. It's easy to remember this when we're at work, at the hospital, in the clinic. We have our embroidered jackets, people are addressing us by our title, but when our day comes to an end, we get in our cars and we drive to our next space that we'll occupy. It's important to remember that physician advocacy doesn't stop. Your advocacy for yourself, for our communities, does not end. And actually, the most important advocacy takes place outside of our clinical environments. We know that there are many issues that affect us, our practice, our patients, and a lot of these directives are handed down to us from administrators and policymakers that have no idea what it is we actually do, never mind how to care for a patient. They've never touched a patient, they're not trained to make medical decisions, but far too often, we seem to be willing to sit by and watch our area of expertise be taken over by stockholders, MBAs, non-physician insurance CEOs. We go on social media and we vent and we complain, and there is place for that, absolutely, to spread awareness and to rally support and to receive validation. That's so important to amplify our message. However, it's also important that we participate in the decision-making process about our profession everywhere, all the time. I know that most of you might be thinking that this means being on some type of committee or some type of establishing some type of committee or some leadership role in your practice or at your hospital. And it can mean that, but it doesn't have to be. It could be joining your local professional organization and rising the ranks there. It could be being general wellness officer of your medical group. But we must remember that we are many things, not just physicians. We are parents, we're daughters and sons, and this is why I shared my background as I did, because we occupy so many spaces at every level, and we must use our voice and our platform in every space that we occupy. The conversations for you guys at this conference have centered around advocacy. You've heard all the amazing panelists share about advocating for and in our community. This panel is going to share thoughts and experience about physicians advocating for ourselves and for each other. Although two different discussions, they are interconnected. And let me share with you a couple of my own experiences. So the first one has to do with the realities of the lack of diversity in our physician workforce. And we all know how the lack of diversity is directly connected to fundamental issues like healthcare disparities. When we lack diversity in our physician workforce, we cannot be shocked that communities of color are not properly represented, or the communities of color that are not properly represented in our physician workforce struggle to access and navigate our healthcare system. We talk about the need to address the drop of Black men attending medical school and graduating from medical school. But in that same advocacy, though, there are issues of advocating for the needs of physicians. At a conference a few years ago, I helped organize. Black women physicians came together and from across the nation, and we talked about our experiences as Black women. One particular session was closed and became a safe space to share our experience on how we felt. And as I sat there and listened to one sister after another sister stand up and share how isolated she felt in her group practice, or how isolated she felt at her hospital or at her clinic, it was clear that we have an issue with retention, burnout, and advocacy on behalf of physicians of color, specifically women physicians of color. As the session went on and the sisters shared deeper and deeper struggles and stories of overt racism, sexism, all of us were in tears at the end of it. And it was one of the most powerful expressions of humanity, I think, that I've ever experienced. So I share this with you because when we left that session, many of us understood the issues and barriers that we were collectively facing. And we knew that creating a diverse physician workforce was of paramount importance, not just to address the issues of cultural competency and mitigating healthcare disparities in communities of color, but also to retain our physician workforce, the Black women who are here, the Black men who are here, the children who are considering these careers. We felt the need to do a little bit more to demonstrate the importance, the critical importance of work in this space. This conference would actually lead to a few publications. One was an op-ed in U.S. News and World Report on the need to add another M for medicine to STEM. We shared that by excluding medicine, we had created a vacuum where the health industry and the stakeholders in health, such as hospital networks, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, device companies, medical device companies, and government, felt no responsibility to fund early education science programs that would create the next generation of physicians, diverse physicians that our society needed. And we did this because we understood that advocating for greater physician diversity was both a community issue and a self-help issue. So while my advocacy work was inspired by my own experience as often the singular Black woman physician in many of my workspaces, I did realize that disparate health outcomes in communities of color are directly related to this lack of diversity across the board, right? So I have moved into spaces that allows me to collaborate and amplify this message in other organizations. And one such fantastic organization is Black Men in White Coats with Dr. Del Okorodudu. And let me show you the trailer for the documentary that I had the honor of lending my voice to.
We need more Black men in white coats because we need to save the lives of more Black men, period.
There were fewer Black men applying to medical school in 2014 than in 1978.
There are several medical schools that do not have any Black men in their classrooms. When that is the case, and we're in a learning environment, there's going to be different conclusions made about how to care for people if there are not diverse people around the table.
You need to care about your fellow man and woman, otherwise we all suffer. So the reason why white people, white women should care about diversifying the physician workforce, which includes Black men, is because it makes it better for all of us.
Historically, the system wasn't designed for Black men to succeed.
My mom, on and off drugs, in and out of jail my whole life, and becoming an orthopedic spine surgeon, if I can do it and come from that environment and everything that I went through, I think you can also.
There are little Black boys out there who see me on TV, who see me in this role, and who may not have ever thought that they could be a doctor, much less Surgeon General, who when they see that, all of a sudden think, I can do that too.
We're approaching this as though it's a problem versus realizing that we have a crisis on our hands.
What's the impact if this problem doesn't change?
Black people are gonna continue dying.
Yeah, ain't no time for stressing, I've been really stepping. Ooh, ooh. Yeah, if you wanna go get it, stop playing around. Really got on racks, ain't playing around. Wanna go get it, stop playing around. Really got on racks, ain't playing around. Black men, white coat, shit, we up right now, yeah. You gotta set you a goal, you gotta accomplish your goal.
So you can see how he is advocating for diversity in medicine, which helps us in our workspaces, but also helps our patients in a relatively non-traditional space for physicians by way of the documentary. The next example I would like to share with you is an experience that I had serving as a content expert for the state of Texas for the review and rewriting of our health education curriculum for K through 12 public schools in Texas. And as you can imagine, in a state like Texas, the review and rewriting of the health education curriculum is a very political discussion, particularly when we get to reproductive health and, honestly, believe it or not, psychological health, emotional health, and mental health. Issues like contraception, STDs, the concept of consent, asking permission before you enter people's personal spaces, were days-long discussions, if you can believe it. And as we walked through it, I was able to sit at the table and lend my voice as the only Black woman physician on the committee, on the panel, I should say. So during our time together, I worked with my fellow committee members to have language included in our recommendations that would add a new section to the curriculum that would educate Texas students on the various members of the healthcare team and their specific roles and their scopes of practice. So you can see that this is an important issue in medicine, scopes of practice and who can do what and what's safe for the public. And of course, there's spaces and policy advocacy at the state level, the government, the federal level to engage. But here I'm able to do it by injecting this important information into the curriculum so that as students learn this in school, coming up through our school system in Texas, it's something that's familiar and accurate and makes sense and they're used to it. So this is a way to advocate for scope of practice creep or the different roles on the healthcare team, educating the students about the different options of careers. It's not just doctor and nurse. We know that there's a whole team of people behind the scenes and in front of the camera doing this work. And if I have the opportunity in this space to add it to the curriculum so that all of our students, K through 12 in the state of Texas, learns this, that is tremendous advocacy on behalf of ourselves, me, but also our patients and society at large. The final example I will share with you is how even a relatively small number of physicians standing together can have a huge impact on our world, especially when advocacy is combined with pop culture or prominent imagery on television. So let's talk about Doc McStuffins. I can remember when the cartoon first premiered on Disney Junior, I think it was in 2012. I had a 4-year-old at the time, and I was very excited to sit with her and watch this new show because, for obvious reasons, the lead character is an intellectual professional. She is brown. She is aspiring to be a physician like her physician mom, and I was intrigued. I homeschool my children, as I mentioned, and this was an opportunity to have, I felt, excellent conversations about issues in our society, about health, and just basically demonstrating to my child that she can be anything. And this is an example where she can see it and not just hear mommy say it. So I started watching this show, and I will say that I was thoroughly impressed. I enjoyed the subtle messaging or overt messaging, I should say, to children about safety, hand washing, hydration, things like that, basic education of how to take care of themselves. But I also enjoyed that Doc actually doesn't have to be a Black girl. She's just a child in America who happens to be Black. So that was something that I really enjoyed, that the character could transcend race. I watched a few episodes of this. I was thoroughly impressed. So I gathered hundreds of my closest friends, and we started a movement called the We Are Doc McStuffins movement, which consisted of our national tour, our national Docmobile tour, and all of the physicians in the major cities that we visited. Thousands of parents brought their children to our tour stops. In Times Square, parents waited hours with their children. And one of the best things about that is they waited hours, and the Doc character was there too, with a whole Docmobile where it was like a mobile hospital unit, so to speak, and the kids can go in there and practice taking blood pressure and get stickers and learn a little bit along the way. And like I said, the character was there so people could take pictures with the character. But the parents waited hours to see the real Doc McStuffinses, right? The real women who were real doctors who were there. We were there engaging the children, and the children wanted to take pictures with us. The cartoon is cute, but the parents would say, I didn't bring my child to Times Square and wait in line for 2 or 3 hours so they can visit a cartoon character. We actually brought our children so that they could see you. So that really allowed us to realize that we were having a big impact, because we know that images are so important, and advocacy in this space is sharing with the world, everybody who will listen, we exist, we're here. And also this image allows us, as we all know, people of all races, gender, will realize that Black women physicians could be the physician, could be in charge of the healthcare team. And this was something that we kind of had to fight for recognition. We're still fighting, but it's a lot easier when you walk into an exam room and a child hits their parent and says, hey, look, it's Doc McStuffins. It's just like Doc McStuffins. Because what that means to the child and now their parents is that this is a normal sight to see. A Black woman can be the physician without a double look or a triple look or multiple questions being asked. So really it was a very, very positive experience and very, very strong advocacy in the community on behalf of physicians and on behalf of each other. Now, as nice as this all looked, it was a collective effort. I can remember a time when a few of us flew to California to have lunch with senior leadership of Disney Junior about how we could initially work together. And during that lunch meeting, and subsequent conversations with leadership, Disney Junior leadership, it became obvious that our value as the Black women physicians was not fully, truly appreciated. So about halfway through one of our polite conversations, during one of our conference calls or meetings, I felt like I needed to voice the sentiment that I didn't feel like they really appreciated the value add that we were, or that we would be at the Docmobile tour stops and as a part of their branding campaign. So what I said was this. I said, we all know that we as Black women are driving this campaign. Black women physicians are driving this campaign. However, I feel like you are allowing us to be your date in private, but we aren't allowed to say that you're our boyfriend in public. I expect at least some flowers or chocolates or something. I mean, what are you going to give us? I mean, we are a valuable part of this whole campaign. So there was silence, as you can imagine. But I think they got it, because after the silence, they said, yeah, we understand what you're saying. Let me go back and talk to our people and see what we can do. And later, a week or two passed, and they gave us tens of thousands of dollars in funding so that we could have our conference and so that we can work in our communities as physicians, as women physicians of color. So imagine, though, if I decided to stay quiet in those conversations, or worse, I didn't have a seat at the table or didn't take my place at the table. We would have missed out on this tremendous resource. So all the examples that I've shared with you are not overtly traditional spaces that we think to advocate in, but they're spaces that we move in. They're spaces that we live in as parents, like I said, as pet owners, as community members, and as aunties and uncles and daughters and sons, and as consumers of pop culture even. And so I wanted to showcase or highlight ways outside of the traditional professional medical societies or state, federal medical societies, or, your hospital committees on whatever, wellness or physician advocacy or burnout or whatever. Those are all fantastic and necessary places to occupy and advocate with policymakers in those spaces. That's absolutely important. But also, you don't have to only do it in those spaces, and some of us don't have to do it in those spaces at all if that's not our cup of tea. We can advocate in the spaces that we already inhabit. We bring our MDs and our DOs and our degrees and all of who we are, whatever that means, our as mothers, as fathers, as students, as whatever we are, to the spaces that we occupy. And in so doing, it is our responsibility to continue this advocacy on behalf of our patients and on behalf of each other.